Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
You know your marriage is over when your wife laughs about screwing her boss for handbags, right after you pay the mortgage with money from your failing repair shop. I'm Dale Morrison, 43 years old, owner of Morrison's Fix-It in this dying New England town that pretends it's not rotting from the inside out. My hands are permanently stained with grease. My back aches from crawling under broken appliances, and apparently my wife Jenna thinks I'm not good enough for her anymore. The conversation I overheard changed everything. I'd come home early from the shop, hoping to surprise Jenna with takeout from that Chinese place she likes. The house was quiet except for her voice drifting from the kitchen. She was on her phone, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years. "Paul, you're terrible," she giggled. "Yes, I told Dale we were exclusive, but I'm still dating my boss for gifts. He has no idea about the hotel receipts." My blood turned to ice water. Paul, that was her boss at the tech startup where she'd been working for 8 months. The same Paul she claimed was just professional when I asked about all those late meetings. I stood in the doorway, Chinese food growing cold in my hands, listening to my wife of 18 years destroy our marriage with casual laughter. The Prada bag? Oh, Dale thinks I saved up for it. He's so naive. He actually believes I'm working overtime. More laughter. I know, right? He's fixing Mrs. Henderson's washing machine while I'm getting designer lingerie from you. That's when I walked into the kitchen and set the food on the counter with deliberate calm. "Hope your boss covers dinner too," I said, then walked out. Her scream of "Dale, wait!" followed me to my truck, but I was already gone. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later while I sat in the parking lot of Murphy's Bar, staring at nothing. A text from Jenna. "My card was declined at the restaurant. What did you do?" I'd canceled all our joint credit cards from my phone. Amazing what you can accomplish with online banking these days. The next 3 days were a blur of sleeping at the shop and avoiding Jenna's increasingly frantic calls. But I couldn't avoid reality forever. I had to go home eventually, if only to get clean clothes and figure out what came next. The house felt different when I walked in Thursday evening. Colder. Jenna was waiting in the living room, arms crossed, looking like she was preparing for battle. "We need to talk," she said. "About what, your boyfriend?" Her face flushed. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because what I think is that you've been screwing your boss and laughing about how stupid your husband is." Was I wrong about that part? She looked away. "Dale, our marriage has been over for years. We both know it. I didn't know it. Apparently, I'm the only one who didn't get that memo. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work. Paul and I, we connect on a professional level. Is that what you call it when he buys you lingerie?" The silence stretched between us. Finally, she sighed. "How long have you known? Does it matter? The question is, how long has it been going on?" 6 months. She said it like she was discussing the weather. "Dale, I want a divorce." There it was. The words that officially ended 18 years of marriage, spoken in the same tone she used to ask me to take out the trash. "Fine," I said. "But I'm not making this easy for you." That night, I lay in the guest bedroom and stared at the ceiling, listening to Jenna talking to someone on the phone in our old bedroom. Probably Paul, probably planning their next romantic getaway on my dime. I'd been the good husband, the provider, the guy who fixed everyone else's problems while my own life fell apart. But as I lay there in the dark, something cold and calculating settled in my chest. If Jenna wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real game looked like. Friday morning brought clarity. I opened the shop as usual, but my mind was elsewhere. My regular customers, mostly older folks who'd known me since I was a kid, could tell something was wrong. "You look like hell, Dale," said Mrs. Patterson, dropping off her broken toaster. "Everything all right at home?" "Just peachy. Mrs. P. Jenna's exploring new career opportunities." She gave me a look that said she knew exactly what that meant. Small towns are funny that way. Secrets don't stay secret for long. Around noon, my best friend Stu walked in. Stuart Kowalski owned Murphy's Bar and looked like he could still go 10 rounds in the MMA ring, where he'd spent his 20s. We'd been friends since high school, and he had that sixth sense that told him when I needed backup. "Heard through the grapevine that Jenna's been making some new friends," he said, settling his bulk against my workbench. "News travels fast." Faster when the new friend is Paul Hendricks, and they've been seen at the Marriott downtown 3 times this week. I looked up from the lawnmower I was pretending to fix. You've been watching them. Nah, but my bartender's girlfriend works at the hotel. Says they're not exactly subtle about it. Registered under his name, always room 412, always Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Information. That was what I needed. Cold, hard facts instead of emotions. What else do you know about Paul? Stu grinned, and it wasn't a nice expression. Plenty. He's married to some lawyer named Patricia. Lives in that fancy development off Maple Street. Drives a white Tesla, thinks his shit doesn't stink. Word is, he's done this before with other employees. Other employees? Yeah. There was some girl last year, worked in accounting. She quit suddenly, moved to Boston. Office gossip says Paul has a type. Married women, older, looking for excitement. My hands tightened on the wrench I was holding. Son of a bitch. Dale, what are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time I met Paul properly. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I followed my wife. She left the house at 1:30, dressed in an outfit I'd never seen before. Tight black dress, heels that probably cost more than I made in a week. She looked good, I had to admit, but she was looking good for someone else. I followed her downtown in my truck, staying far enough back to avoid detection. She parked at the office building where she worked, but instead of going inside, she walked 2 blocks to the Marriott. Paul was waiting in the lobby, tall, lean, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He was handsome in that generic, corporate way that women seem to find irresistible. When he saw Jenna, his face lit up like Christmas morning. They kissed right there in the lobby. Not a peck on the cheek, but a full, passionate kiss that made my stomach turn. Then, they headed for the elevators, his hand on her lower back in a gesture that was both possessive and casual. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, watching the hotel entrance, feeling something dark and patient growing inside me. When they finally emerged, they were laughing, holding hands like teenagers. Paul walked her to her car, kissed her goodbye, then headed for his Tesla. That's when I made my first move. I waited until Paul was inside the hotel, probably settling the bill, then approached his car. The Tesla was parked in a spot marked "Reserved for Hotel Guests." Pristine white paint, gleaming in the afternoon sun. I took out my keys and dragged them along the driver's side door, leaving a long, deep scratch in the paint. Then, I pulled out a business card from my shop and wrote on the back, "Hope this cleans up easy, Paulie. D." I tucked the card under his windshield wiper and walked away. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later with a text from an unknown number. "You're dead, you piece of shit." I texted back, "I've been dead for years. Welcome to the club." That evening, Jenna came home, acting like nothing had happened. She kissed my cheek, the same lips that had been on Paul an hour earlier, and asked about my day. "Productive," I said. "Fixed Mrs. Patterson's toaster. Ordered parts for the Henderson job, met your boyfriend." She froze. "What?" "Nice car he drives. Shame about the scratch." The color drained from her face. "Dale, you can't what? Can't defend myself? Can't fight back when my wife's boss threatens me? What exactly can't I do, Jenna?" She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. "This isn't you," she whispered. "No," I agreed. "The old me would have cried and begged you to come back. The old me would have blamed himself and tried to win you back with flowers and promises. But the old me was an idiot who didn't know his wife was screwing around." I stepped closer, and she actually took a step back. "This is the new me, Jenna. And the new me doesn't play nice." The weekend was tense. Jenna barely spoke to me, spending most of her time on the phone in hushed conversations. Our daughter Chloe, 7, and sharp as a tack, picked up on the tension immediately. Are you guys getting divorced? She asked Sunday morning, finding me in the kitchen making coffee. Probably. Good. Mom's been acting weird lately anyway. All those new clothes and late meetings. I'm not stupid, Dad. It hurt to hear my daughter talk about her mother that way, but I was grateful she wasn't taking sides. Yet. Chloe, whatever happens between your mom and me, I know it's not about me. But Dad? She paused at the kitchen doorway. Mom's friend Mara was here yesterday while you were at the shop. They were talking about you. Mara said you were becoming a problem and that Paul was worried. Mara. Jenna's best friend since college, married to a successful contractor, lived in the nicest house in town. I'd never liked her. She had that fake smile and condescending tone that rich people use when they're pretending to be friendly. What else did they say? Something about making sure you didn't cause trouble at the company picnic next weekend. Mom seemed stressed about it. The company picnic. Of course. Paul would be there with his wife. Jenna would be there as his employee, and I was supposed to play the oblivious husband who didn't know his wife was screwing her boss. Thanks for telling me, kiddo. Dad, whatever you're planning, be careful. Mom's not the same person she used to be. Monday brought new challenges. 3 of my regular customers called to cancel their service appointments. No explanations, just sudden changes of heart. By Tuesday, I'd lost 2 more clients. Stu stopped by that afternoon with a grim expression. Paul's been busy, he said. Word around town is that you're unstable and potentially dangerous. People are scared to use your services. He's trying to destroy my business. Looks like it. Dale, this guy's connected. He's got money, influence. If you're going to fight him, you need to be smart about it. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I went through Jenna's things, her purse, her laptop, her dresser drawers. What I found made my blood boil. Credit card receipts for restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel bills charged to cards I didn't know existed. Jewelry I'd never seen her wear. And in her laptop's browser history, searches for divorce lawyers and how to hide assets during divorce proceedings. But the real prize was in her email. Months of correspondence with Paul, starting innocent and professional, gradually becoming more personal, then explicitly sexual. The most recent emails were about me, how to handle Dale and minimize complications. One email from Paul made my hands shake with rage. Don't worry about your husband. Guys like him always back down when they realize they're outclassed. If he becomes a real problem, I have ways of dealing with blue-collar types. Blue-collar types. Like I was some kind of lesser species. I forwarded the most damaging emails to my own account, then cleared the browser history so Jenna wouldn't know I'd been snooping. Wednesday morning brought the next phase of my plan. I called Patricia Hendricks, Paul's wife. I'd looked her up online, successful attorney, partner at a prestigious firm downtown, no children. Her office number was listed on her law firm's website. Patricia Hendricks' office, this is Michelle. Hi, I need to speak with Mrs. Hendricks about her husband Paul. It's urgent. May I ask what this is regarding? Tell her it's about his affair with one of his employees. I have documentation. There was a pause, then, please hold. Patricia came on the line 30 seconds later. Her voice was crisp, professional, but I could hear the tension underneath. This is Patricia Hendricks. Who am I speaking with? Dale Morrison. My wife works for your husband. I think we need to talk. Another pause. I see. Can you be at my office at 2 o'clock? I'll be there. Patricia's office was everything I'd expected. Expensive furniture, law books, diplomas on the walls. She was attractive in a severe way. Blonde hair pulled back, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck. Mr. Morrison, I appreciate you coming to me directly, rather than making this public immediately. I'm not interested in destroying your life, Mrs. Hendricks, but your husband is trying to destroy mine. I showed her the emails, the credit card receipts, the hotel records that Stu had helped me obtain. She read everything with the cold efficiency of someone used to dealing with unpleasant facts. How long has this been going on? She asked finally. 6 months that I know of. Maybe longer. She nodded, making notes on a legal pad. Mr. Morrison, I want you to know that Paul and I have been having problems for some time. This isn't entirely unexpected. What are you going to do? What I do best. I'm going to destroy him legally and financially. But I need your help. What kind of help? I need more evidence. Documentation, witnesses, anything that proves a pattern of behavior. Paul has done this before, but the other women were too scared or embarrassed to come forward. Why should I help you? She smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. Because Paul is trying to ruin your business and your reputation. Help me, and I'll make sure he's too busy dealing with divorce proceedings and sexual harassment lawsuits to bother with you. We shook hands. It felt like signing a deal with the devil, but sometimes the devil is on your side. That evening, Jenna announced she was going out with Mara for girls' night. I nodded and wished her a good time, then waited an hour before following her. She wasn't with Mara. She was at Paul's apartment, a luxury condo downtown that probably cost more per month than I made in 3. I sat in my truck across the street.
You wrote him love poems. In 10 years, you never wrote me a word.
It was emotional.
How is he telling it another?
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Watching the lit windows on the 3rd floor, imagining my wife in another man's bed. But I wasn't there to torture myself. I was there to gather intelligence. Paul's building had security cameras, but they only covered the main entrance. The parking garage entrance was a blind spot. I'd noticed that during my reconnaissance. More importantly, I'd noticed that Paul's Tesla was parked in spot 23, right next to a support pillar that would provide cover. I waited until midnight, then made my move. The security guard was dozing at his desk when I slipped into the parking garage through the pedestrian entrance. Paul's Tesla sat in its assigned spot, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. This time, I didn't just scratch the paint. I let the air out of all 4 tires, then used a screwdriver to remove his license plates. But the real masterpiece was what I did to the interior. The car was unlocked. Rich people in secure buildings get careless. I poured a bottle of fish sauce I'd bought from the Asian market under the driver's seat, then scattered cat food throughout the interior. The smell would take weeks to eliminate, and the cat food would attract every stray in the neighborhood. I left another note on his windshield. Stop threatening me, or this gets worse. Much worse. Then I went home and slept better than I had in weeks. Thursday morning brought consequences. My phone rang at 7 a.m. Jenna screaming. What did you do to Paul's car? Good morning to you too, honey. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. He's threatening to call the police. Let him. I was at Murphy's bar until closing time last night. Stu and half the town can vouch for me. That was true. I'd made sure to establish an alibi after my late-night visit to Paul's garage. Dale, this has to stop. You're acting crazy. Crazy? Your boyfriend threatens my livelihood, spreads lies about me around town, and I'm the crazy one? He's not my boyfriend. He's what, Jenna? Your boss? Your lover? Your ticket to a better life? What exactly is Paul to you? Silence. That's what I thought. By the way, his wife knows everything. The sharp intake of breath told me I'd scored a direct hit. You didn't. I did. Patricia Hendricks is a very thorough woman. She's already started divorce proceedings. Dale, you don't understand what you've done. Paul is a married man who's been screwing his employees and is about to lose everything, just like I did. I hung up and went to open the shop. The day brought more canceled appointments and cold shoulders from people who'd known me for years. Paul's campaign to destroy my reputation was working, but I had Patricia's promise that his troubles were just beginning. Around noon, a black BMW pulled up outside my shop. Paul got out and he looked like hell. Expensive suit wrinkled, tie askew, eyes red with exhaustion or rage, maybe both. He stormed into my shop like he owned the place. You son of a bitch, he snarled. You think you can threaten me? I think I can defend myself when someone tries to destroy my business. Your business? Your business is fixing broken appliances for old ladies. I make more in a month than you make in a year. And yet here you are in my shop, looking like you haven't slept in days. How's the Tesla running?" His face turned red. "You're going to pay for this. I have lawyers, connections, resources you can't even imagine." "Funny thing about resources," I said, setting down the vacuum cleaner I'd been repairing. "Your wife has more of them than you do, and she's very motivated right now. Patricia doesn't scare me. She should. She's already frozen your joint accounts, filed for divorce this morning, and she's been in contact with 3 other women who want to tell their stories about their former boss." The color drained from his face. "You're lying." "Am I? Check your phone. I bet you've got some interesting voicemails from your lawyer." He pulled out his phone, and I watched his expression change as he scrolled through his messages. When he looked up, his eyes were filled with something I'd never seen before: genuine fear. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is. You're done, Paul. Done with my wife, done with your job, done with your comfortable life. The only question now is whether you go quietly or if I have to make things worse for you." He left without another word, but I knew this was far from over. That evening, Jenna came home in tears. She'd been fired. "They said it was due to restructuring," she sobbed. "But I know it was because of what you did. Paul's been suspended pending investigation. The whole office is in chaos." I felt a moment of sympathy for her. She looked genuinely devastated. But then I remembered the emails, the lies, the casual way she discussed my ignorance with her lover. Maybe you should have thought about consequences before you decided to screw your boss. "Dale, I made a mistake. I know that now. But destroying Paul's life won't save our marriage." "I'm not trying to save our marriage, Jenna. I'm trying to save what's left of my dignity." "What about Chloe? What about our family?" "You destroyed our family the first time you went to that hotel room. I'm just making sure everyone knows who's responsible." Friday brought the company picnic and my masterstroke. The Riverside Park Pavilion was decorated with balloons and banners for the annual company picnic. Families spread blankets on the grass, while kids ran around the playground. It would have been a perfect scene if not for the undercurrent of tension that seemed to follow me wherever I went. Jenna had begged me not to come, but I'd insisted. After all, I was still technically an employee's spouse, and I wanted to see Paul's professional world crumble in person. Paul wasn't there, probably on administrative leave while the company investigated the sexual harassment allegations that Patricia's lawyer had filed. But his absence was like a ghost haunting the party. People whispered in small groups, casting glances at Jenna, who sat alone at a picnic table looking miserable. I worked the crowd like a politician, shaking hands with Jenna's coworkers, making small talk about the weather and the food. Most of them were polite but distant. Word of the scandal had spread through the office. But I wasn't there for small talk. I was there for the annual employee recognition ceremony, where the company president would make speeches and hand out awards, and where I planned to make my own announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen," called out Mr. Davidson, the company president, "if I could have everyone's attention for our annual awards ceremony." The crowd gathered around the small stage that had been set up near the pavilion. Jenna tried to disappear into the background, but I made sure to stand right behind her, close enough that she could feel my presence. Davidson went through the usual corporate nonsense, thanking employees for their dedication, celebrating another successful year, recognizing outstanding performers. I waited patiently, my hand in my jacket pocket, fingers wrapped around the manila envelope that contained my revenge. "Before we conclude," Davidson said, "I'd like to address the recent difficulties our company has faced. We want to assure everyone that we take workplace conduct seriously, and we're committed to maintaining a professional environment for all employees." That was my cue. "Mr. Davidson," I called out, stepping forward, "I have something that might interest you." The crowd turned to look at me. Jenna's face went white. "Dale, don't," she whispered. "Mr. Morrison, isn't it?" Davidson looked uncomfortable. "Perhaps this isn't the appropriate venue." "Oh, I think it's perfect. See, my wife Jenna works for your company. Worked, I should say, since she was fired yesterday. And I think everyone should know why." I pulled out the envelope and opened it, revealing copies of the emails between Jenna and Paul. These are email exchanges between my wife and her former supervisor, Paul Hendricks. They detail not only their affair, but also how Paul used his position to provide her with gifts, favorable treatment, and company resources for personal use. The crowd was dead silent. Jenna looked like she wanted to disappear. Furthermore, I continued, these emails discuss how to handle employees who might report their relationship and how to manipulate company policies to protect themselves. Davidson's face was grim. Mr. Morrison, I think we should discuss this privately. No. I think everyone deserves to know what kind of people they've been working with, especially since Paul apparently made a habit of this behavior with other female employees. I handed copies of the emails to several people in the crowd. Within minutes, they were being passed around, read with increasing shock and disgust. Paul Hendricks used his position to prey on married women, I announced. He destroyed families for his own entertainment. And when I tried to protect my marriage, he tried to destroy my business. Jenna was crying now, but I wasn't finished. I want everyone to know that I don't blame the women entirely. Paul was in a position of power, and he abused that power. But I also want everyone to know what infidelity really costs. Not just the betrayed spouse, but the children, the families, the communities that get torn apart by selfish choices. The crowd began to disperse, people uncomfortable with the raw emotion and public humiliation they'd witnessed. But they were talking, and that was what I wanted. By Monday, everyone in town would know the full story. Jenna approached me as I walked back to my truck. Are you satisfied now? She asked. You've destroyed everything. I didn't destroy anything, Jenna. I just made sure everyone could see what you and Paul had already destroyed. What happens now? Now you figure out how to rebuild your life without me. And without Paul. Dale, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much, but I am genuinely sorry for what I did to you, to us. I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in months, she was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. But she was also a stranger who'd chosen excitement over loyalty, passion over commitment. I know you are, I said, but sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I wasted thinking I wasn't good enough for you. You were always good enough, Dale. I was just too stupid to see it. No, Jenna, you saw it. You just decided it wasn't enough. That night, I sat in my shop with a beer, surrounded by the tools and machinery that had been my livelihood for 15 years. My phone had been ringing all evening, friends offering support, customers apologizing for canceling their appointments, even a few reporters wanting to hear my side of the story. But the call that mattered most came at 9 p.m. Mr. Morrison, this is Patricia Hendricks. Mrs. Hendricks, how are the divorce proceedings going? Very well, thank you. Paul's lawyer called this afternoon wanting to negotiate a settlement. Apparently, your little speech at the picnic has made him eager to resolve things quietly. Good for you. There's something else. I've been contacted by the district attorney's office. They're interested in the evidence we've compiled about Paul's pattern of behavior. There may be criminal charges. What kind of charges? Sexual harassment, abuse of power, possibly fraud if they can prove he used company resources for personal gain. He could be looking at serious jail time. I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. He brought this on himself. Yes, he did. Mr. Morrison, I want you to know that I appreciate what you did. It took courage to come forward. It took desperation. Sometimes they're the same thing. After I hung up, I walked outside and looked up at the stars. The night was clear and cold, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. My marriage was over. My wife had betrayed me with a man who saw me as beneath his notice. I'd lost friends, customers, and the comfortable illusions that had made my life bearable. But I'd also found something I'd forgotten I had: self-respect. Paul Hendricks had called me a blue-collar type, like it was an insult. But blue-collar types know how to fix things, how to solve problems, how to work with their hands and their brains to create something from nothing. And sometimes, we know how to tear things down too. The next morning brought news that Paul had been arrested on multiple charges. The story made the front page of the local newspaper, complete with details about his affairs and abuse of power. By afternoon, it had gone viral on social media. Jenna called me that evening. They arrested Paul, she said. I heard. Dale, I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. What did you think would happen, Jenna? You thought you could have your cake and eat it too? Thought you could keep me around to pay the bills while you played house with your boss? I don't know what I thought. I was flattered by the attention, excited by the secrecy. I felt alive again. And I felt dead. Every day, watching you slip away, knowing something was wrong, but not knowing what. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? I'm sorry. Stop saying that. Sorry is what you say when you accidentally break something. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice. Hundreds of choices, every day. To lie to me and betray our marriage? What do you want me to say? Nothing. There's nothing left to say. 6 months later, the divorce was final. Jenna got half of everything, which wasn't much after the legal fees. She moved to Boston, got a job with a smaller company, started over. Paul went to prison for 18 months on fraud and harassment charges. His wife took him for everything in the divorce, just like she'd promised. And me? I kept my shop, rebuilt my customer base, and learned to live alone. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was honest. No lies, no betrayals, no pretending to be something I wasn't. Some people called me vindictive for destroying Paul's life. Others said I was a hero for standing up to a bully. The truth was somewhere in between. I was just a man who'd been pushed too far and decided to push back. The last laugh, as it turned out, was mine,